melt inside an ocean wave.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to my Wonder Woman 1984 review. The latest DC film and follow-up to 2017's smash hit Wonder Woman is directed once again by Patty Jenkins, and is the first of many planned blockbusters to be hitting HBO Max and theaters simultaneously. Set in 1984 during the Cold War, the film follows Diana and her past lover, Steve Trevor, as they face off against Maxwell Lord and Cheetah. Okay, so starting off, the marketing for this film, it never resonated with me. I think it was marketed pretty horribly, so my expectations going into this movie weren't very high. I didn't think it was going to be a great movie, and I'd say that it still barely met my expectations. Yeah. Okay, but let's start off with the good aspects of the film. And first off, surprisingly enough, is Gal Gadot, or Gadot, however you say it. In the first Wonder Woman film, she had a lot of support from the very talented Chris Pine to help her carry the film, so it never felt like she carried it on her own. But here in this film, I think Gadot proves she can carry this franchise by herself. There are a few moments that call for some serious acting from her, and I think she delivers on them very well. She has a very likable persona as well, but I do wish she had more personality and relatability, because I think another actress would probably be able to make the character more relatable and personable, but I think you can see her limits in that regard, but she's making big improvements in her acting prowess here. Easily her best performance yet, and she still has room to improve. Next up in the positives is Pedro Pascal, the villain in this film. Some may find his performance a little too cheesy or over the top. And while there are definitely moments where he goes a little too far in that regard, I think overall he makes for a compelling enough villain. Definitely better than the first film. The whole stone and wishing plot around him, not good at all. It wasn't well executed at all, but that is not his fault. He himself, his character and his performance are both well done. They're both good. They're not amazing, but they make for a good enough villain. Like a lot of this film, the villainous turn, it's like a good homage, I guess, to the 80s style of superhero movies, like the Schumacher films or like the first Superman film, because it's cheesier. And I don't know if Jenkins, I guess, homaging to that era of superhero comic book movie filmmaking exactly works here. I don't think it really does. I do wish Maxwell Lord did have a little more character development. It seemed his whole motivation inconsistent and a little surface level. Like I won't spoil anything, but he has a kid. That's a big motivating factor. But then when you see all the decisions he makes as he goes further down this villainous path that he's on, it doesn't exactly connect with some of the supposed motivations that he had earlier in the film. And that's bringing up a main issue I have with this film. It has two villains, and we have seen plenty of recent comic book films be able to do just fine with two villains. But here, it doesn't work. I think you need to develop both of these villains more. Both of them felt a little underdeveloped, and I think having both of them in the movie as villains hurts both of them. So moving on to the other villain, Kristen Wiig as Barbara Minerva, not Cheetah. I think she does a good job as Barbara, playing the nerdy, unpopular role. I did find myself feeling a little bad for her, I think, as you're supposed to, and root for her, but there's a big emphasis in this film put on how she's a very kind and warm and nice soul, and I just didn't honestly personally see that in the performance. I got more nerdy and awkward vibes from her. And then to like show that she's this kind, warm soul, it's just so surface level stuff like that is kind of cringeworthy. It's like, oh, she is friendly with this homeless guy and she gives him meals. It's like so blatantly like, look at her, she's a nice, warm person, and they never really go into it any more than that because they don't have the time to because they have overstuffed this movie. I think she can deliver the awkwardness very well as she does in the film. But yeah, the warmth never really came through, and that was an important aspect to her character as she develops later on throughout the film. And as for the cheetah aspect, we all know, we've seen in the trailers that she becomes cheetah. She's only cheetah for one scene in this film, and it's not a very good scene. And I won't say what happens to her, but there's not a lot of promise left for her character at the end of this film. I think if given the proper time, her the development of her relationship with Diana, and then her heading down this tragic path, would have had much more emotional heft to it. But as it stands here, they it seems like honestly Wonder Woman kind of uses Kristen Wiig's character when she takes her out to lunch earlier on in the film, just to get information, and then honestly, they meet, and then pretty much the few scenes after they meet, they're almost on opposite paths. It doesn't really feel like there was ever a friendship there, which I think would have been a cool and important aspect to her character, but it is not there. Yeah, so both the villains are hurt by the other one being in the film. Getting into some more negatives, sadly, because there's a decent amount with this film. The script here is honestly atrocious. It's so bad. It is riddled with everything any good screenwriter should have nightmares about. It's got plot holes, too many like conveniences, like in Rise of Skywalker. There's a ton of conveniences. There's a ton of conveniences in this movie too, and a ton of inconsistent conveniences. Like they set something up, and it seems like, oh, so this is like the rule surrounding this, and this is like the circumstances. I don't know, like they set up a mythology and how things work, and then they kind of contradict it. There's a MacGuffin that is way too convenient and never properly explained. The character arcs are just non-existent, really. I don't think there's really, both the character arcs for the villains, I didn't believe. They never resonated, and the character arc for Diana, I don't know, it's an odd one. I don't completely even know how much of a true character arc there is there. But yeah, the script is atrocious. I don't know how they get a script like this in front of cameras without rewrites or noticing before they're in front of cameras that it's a bad script, but that happened. Yeah, oddly enough. I don't know, unless the script's bad, yeah. I will stop it there. Another weakness is the action in this film, sadly enough. First off, there isn't much action at all. You have seen all of the major action set pieces inside the trailers. There's only like 4, I think, maybe 5. And for the action that there is, it is not well done. The choreography is pretty weak, and the visual effects for 2020 and a film of this level and budget is very, very bad. It looks, you can tell, like CGI models of characters fighting. Yeah. The way they shoot the action is odd as well. I know Patty Jenkins, like I said before, is trying to do an homage to these earlier superhero films, especially Donner's Superman. It just doesn't work. I think it just looks dated. It doesn't feel right for a film today. So her whole homage there, especially in the action scenes and the way they're shot and edited together and the way they look, everything about it just doesn't work, sadly, in that regard. It's not terrible action. It's not like you're cringing at it. It's not like there's a bunch. I hate the action where there's a bunch of cuts and you can't see anything. You get a pretty good depth of field and understanding of the layout of the action scenes, but they just aren't that great. They're nothing special. And when the movie itself and the plot isn't that special, you would hope there's at least some special action to carry you through it, but there isn't. Any other negatives? Cinematography is surprisingly worse than the first film. The first film had good cinematography. Everything looked cheap, honestly, in this film. Most of these films I can think of, like standout shots, especially these superhero films, at least one or two. I can't think of a single one in this one, sadly. But I think that's enough time on the negatives. You understand there's plenty negative to say about this film, but let's head back to a few positives. As I said before, all the performances, the actors do great with what they're given. It just sucks that what they're given sucks. But the final positive is, of course, Hans Zimmer. That he will never be a negative on any film because he always makes amazing scores. I think he's probably the best working composer right now. John Williams' recent work isn't nearly as good, I think, as Hans Zimmer's recent work. So every scene here is improved by his score. The scenes work better and have more emotional impact, if there is any, because of his score. One scene in particular that I was talking about with Gal Gadot's acting, have that serious moment. The score really helps there. The score overall is just like a huge factor in why this movie even works in the slightest. So Hans Zimmer, great thumbs up from you. I think you're probably the MVP of this movie, honestly. Great job as always. Direction, let's do the final analysis here. So Wonder Woman 84 has, I'd say, B level performances. Actors do good, sometimes a little out of whack, but good overall with what they're given. B minus direction, maybe C plus, honestly, just because I know Jenkins was given a bad script, but she also had a lot of feedback and she had a lot of control over that script, especially after the first film. So I don't know why she would let that get in front of the camera. But even with what she's given, the direction isn't that great, honestly. As I was saying, the action scenes, the cinematography, the acting's good. That's good for her. But yeah, most of this movie just doesn't work, and a lot of that lands on the director's shoulders. D minus script, I already talked about how it's horrible. It's horrible. I should probably give it an F, but I'll give it some sympathy. D minus. A minus score, Hans Zimmer. You're amazing. And I'd say C level action. It's passable. It's not like atrocious or anything. It's passable. So that gives Wonder Woman 84 an overall grade of about A. I'll give it a 63%. Yeah, that seems fair. I'm not going to put it in the rotten category. Just barely fresh and watchable. So yeah, big disappointment. I wasn't even a huge fan of the 2017 Wonder Woman. I know lots of people love that movie. I thought it was good, definitely good. This, not as good. Yeah, not as good. I don't know what else I have to say about it. More reviews are coming. I'm going to do a Soul review. I am going to do a tier list of the Pixar and DCEU movies. Tier list ranking one or the other. And please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Would be much appreciated. Thank you. See you later.